Blue, a primary color that derives from the Middle English term blue, or blewe with Germanic origin. The Old French term bleu, bleu, derives from the Old High German word blau, meaning chimerous or lustrous. Its symbolism to peace, wisdom, sensitivity, and is a dominant color in the natural world, seen in the sky and sea. However, beside the sky and sea, it's uniquely rare in plants and animals too. This could be why Yves Klein, a French artist who pioneered performance, minimalism, and pop art using his famous blue with various trademarks like International Klein Blue, IKB, that are registered and protect the artist's name and work. He worked predominantly with three colors: gold, which he equates with the physical material transformed to the spiritual; red, which he called monopink and equated with flesh and blood materiality; and ultramarine, which represented space. But the color blue dominated, and in 1960 he patented it IKB. Obsessed with the luminosity of the blue sky in Nice, he tried to replicate a blue as powerful to show its freedom. He said that the color enabled viewers to bathe in cosmic sensibility and stemmed from his personal experiences, artistic philosophies, and its symbolic representation of the infinite and immaterial. He worked with a chemical retailer who used a polymer binder that would keep the blue pigment's intensity as it became paint, thus using it in his canvases, sculpture, and performance work later on. However, his legacy was much more complicated and controversial. Klein's anthropometry performance, which was a theatrical piece using female models covered in his iconic paint, and were then directed by Klein accordingly onto a canvas. One perception was that Klein's usage of the nude female in his works were that of feminist concepts of the ideal or empowered woman. Once pressed onto the paper, they would leave behind pure essentials of their body. This was an anthropometric symbol that was a pure canon of human proportion, believing that these impressions represent the health that brings humans into being, and that their presence in the work transcends personal presence. This created some scandal and controversy, but what he wanted to achieve was the removal of the hand of the artist and use bodies as paintbrushes. Inspired also by the marks on the mats during judo practice in which he practiced in his time, he wanted to exercise this using female models and paint. Did Klein simply want to control these women as a dominant force? Did he enjoy the control he had as he would with the paintbrush? Criticized for this authoritative power struggle, it could have also been perceived as Klein having ultimate control and thus limit and objectify these female subjects, simply as a tool. This gives the perception that this performance faces towards patriarchal values and the male gaze. The audience's reaction was mixed. Maybe Klein enjoyed this, to perturb but appeal as well, playing on humans' instinct of curiosity, but play upon their deepest sensibilities as the models spilled this blue paint onto themselves. So why was this blue so coveted, and what is its appearance today? A video today by the Tate Museum described this performance to be a key event in painting and performance, exposing the making of the painting. A model who was interviewed described it to be easy, and was more than willing to do this for Klein. They said that Klein respected them as collaborators of the piece, thinking that they were quite lucky to experience this. What's interesting in watching this video is the audience. Klein had initially made this piece beforehand before it was done in front of an audience. The audience gave a sense of awe, sense of disgust, but at the same time curiosity, which made the atmosphere both uncomfortable yet interesting. The juxtaposition of the completely naked women being watched by the people who were fully dressed, and about 20 or more in that room, almost makes it feel intimidating and wrong. Wrong for the models to be nude, wrong for a man to command them, wrong to cover themselves in paint and smear and wipe quite seductively all over the place. However, a nude woman has become more mainstream than a man's body. Before even the 6th century, the woman's body was painted quite commonly as a means of communicating softness, lust, and feministic qualities to the point that it became unprotected. Why didn't Klein get undressed, and only the women? You can't deny a sense of opposition between the two, as Klein is in his full suit, commanding these women to strip and paint themselves. The blue acts as his property, and these women allowing themselves to be covered with it allows Klein and his product to encompass their body. The paint embodies his insanity as an artist, but also creates a sense of pure energy that swallows the mind and body. Blue Monochrome, 1961, painted by him, feels like a space than a 2D canvas. It swallows the mind, and like he says, impregnates you, as it feels like it's coming back in and out of you. His blue also differs in texture and its chemical components. IKB is made to be a state that consists no shadow or light, which adds to the effect like it's swallowing you. He does this with a roller and spent years cultivating its chemical body to be matte and lustrous. This makes it hard to replicate today as his secret died with him. Only a few have been close, but it has never had an exact replica produced. This goes back to how rare blue is and how rare Klein was able to achieve this color. This color was a treasure to Klein and is now seen as highly desirable. Is this why he put it on those women to highlight and add value? It's vulnerability, but those models felt as if it was an honor to work with him and his color. Is blue desirable, and was Klein in fact infatuated by the color as a person? A book called Bluets by Maggie Nelson delves into her personal thoughts and discoveries on things that are blue or linked around. A quote from Maggie's book that stuck with me was, "Generally speaking, I do not hunt blue things down, nor do I pay for them. The blue things I treasure are gifts or surprises in the landscape." This thought is quite interesting. Blue may be a dominant color in our world, looking at the ocean, which covers 71% of the Earth's surface alone, and with the sky directly above it surrounding us always, it's a color hard to miss. However, its physicality in nature is such a rarity that it almost becomes a treasure to many people and collectors. This could be why Maggie describes them as gifts and surprises in the landscape. It may seem that there is blue prevalent in insects and animals, however, it's usually an illusion. For example, the morpho butterfly, with its iridescent blue wings. Its wings are in fact brown, but under a microscope they are made up of nanoscale structures resembling Christmas trees, and these formations reflect light to appear a brilliant blue. They also expand as they warm the sun, which in turn enriches this luminous blue. We've replicated this in manufacture today in paint, a mesmerizing finish to cars that appear blue due to reflecting natural light, but doesn't contain any blue pigment. This is known as structural coloring, imitating the structure in the morpho's wings. However, this is just to imitate and trick using light. Only 1% of the animal kingdom is thought to have a true blue pigment. Examples include the olive-winged butterfly, which sports true blue pigments in its wings, or the poison dart frog. The reason for the imitation of blue could be due to camouflage, finding mates, or to deter off predators. Animals also see differently on the color spectrum than humans, as we have three types of cone that detect different colors. This may be why Tuazamorpho is desired for its blue wings, but its predators, like the jacamar and flycatcher birds, base the difficulty of capture on the prey's color, with blue being particularly hard, this in turn deterring the birds to look for easier prey. Blue is rare in nature, as it is extremely a rare compound-wise and difficult to produce biologically, with brown or black being easier in animals and green in plants. Blue can be just as rare in plants in terms of the true pigment in them. Plants evolve to absorb as much light as possible, with blue being one of them. The only time they use blue pigment is to attract attention, such as getting predators to eat its fruit and disperse seedlings through digestion of blue flowers for pollination. Only 10% of flowering plants produce blue flowers. However, today flowers and plants can be culturally grown in mass, which contrasts the scarcity of blue animals in nature, making animals more rare and desired by many. In conclusion, blue is far more than just a color. It is complex, a symbol of beauty, rarity, and femininity. Its scarcity in nature, the emotional and symbolic weight it carries, and its cultural associations across time all contribute to its mystique. Yves Klein's obsession with blue, especially his creation of IKB, reflects a deep desire to harness its immaterial essence and spiritual resonance. Yet his work also raises challenging questions about authorship, the female body, and the male gaze, inviting us to examine the fine line between art and exploitation. From Maggie Nelson's poetic reflections in Bluets to the scientific illusions behind blue in nature, this color continues to captivate and provoke. Blue is a treasure, rare, reflective, and richly layered in meaning. It both reveals and conceals, seduces and challenges, makes it an eternal object of fascination in art, nature, and human perception.